V for Vendetta is a 2005 dystopian political thriller film directed by James McTague and written by the Wachowskis, based on the 1988 DC Vertigo Comics limited series of the same name by Alan Moore and David Lloyd. Set in an alternative future where a Nordic supremacist and neo-fascist totalitarian regime has subjugated the United Kingdom, the film centers on V, an anarchist and masked freedom fighter who attempts to ignite a revolution through elaborate terrorist acts, while Natalie Portman plays Evie, a young working-class woman caught up in V's mission, and Stephen Ray portrays a detective leading a desperate quest to stop V. In this episode of Cinema Conspiracies, we will be looking into 4 different theories about this movie, including who V really is and what movie V for Vendetta might have been a sequel to. Without further ado, let's jump right into it.
My theory for this book has to do with V's identity. I think he was a former soldier in the British military and most likely a member in the Special Forces. I also think that one of the reasons he was imprisoned at Larkhill was because he was homosexual and he was Adam Sutler's lover, who is the most powerful man in Britain. V said that Adam Sutler was a deeply religious man and a member of the Conservative Party, but I think he couldn't resist his wants and had a homosexual relationship with one of his Special Forces bodyguard, who was V. Eventually, he enacted the secret special project, and V objected. Adam Sutler then, in an effort to keep him quiet and cover up his homosexual side, he decided to put V in Larkhill, hoping that he would die there. But due to V's life as a Special Forces commando and being a bodyguard to Chancellor Sutler, he escaped Larkhill and became V. This became the initial reason for his revolt against the government. Also, he talks to Creedy in the greenhouse, telling him things only a bodyguard of Adam would know. For example, he explains to him that he's being watched and there's only a few people close to Adam. This is information that very few people in the upper echelon of the party would know. Another thing is V's knowledge of the government supply trains and how they got to Sutler would also only be something that someone on his security would know.
V for Vendetta is a sequel to 1984. Both of the locations are set in the United Kingdom. In V for Vendetta, the movie tells us that 40 years prior to 2032, it was a democratic government. So that would be a logical fallacy in my argument that the 1984 government is a continuation of the V for Vendetta government. But we look at 1984, it would make sense that the communist government would have collapsed because of the lack of food for people and their enemies defeated in their battles. Like in the real world, where the US beat the USSR due to it having more resources and capital. A democratic government would have come out of the revolution, so it would go with our story so far. But why would citizens create an authoritarian government again if they just went through one and want nothing to do with it? Well, as V for Vendetta tells us, the North Fire Party used a virus to spread fear in people and led their party into virtually every seat in Parliament, taking over everything, creating a fascist government because people always want more power, even if it means undermining everyone below them. So how does this all connect? Well, the North Fire government has concentration camps that they use and a secret police. It wouldn't be a logical leap to say that Larkhill is a leftover concentration camp from 1984. North Fire has a well-established secret police, but how would they have such a good secret police if they've never had experience prior? Well, since the time difference between 1984 and 2032 is 48 years, former police or even former leaders could still be alive, and the government enlisted them in forming it again, making it as good as the one in 1984. The government could do the same with every other branch of government, explaining why the government was so effective in being fascist. But why wouldn't people revolt? The answer is propaganda. As an impactful quote from 1984 tells us, "Who controls the past controls the future." The North Fire Party would enlist former members in the Ministry of Truth to make people quickly forget the past of how bad authoritarian governments are, helping the new government create stability in the country. From all this, we can see that V for Vendetta is just a sequel to 1984.
My theory for V for Vendetta is that V is actually Evie's brother. To start off, the movie made sure to mention Evie's family background. The detective goes in depth listing what happens to each of her parents and her brother. They mention how Evie's brother was sent to St. Mary's, which is also coincidentally the same place V was sent. Also, I think that it was no coincidence that V just so happens to be wandering the streets when Evie is attacked. As mentioned in the story, V says, "I, like God, do not play with dice and do not believe in coincidence." V talks about how he doesn't believe in coincidence a lot, and for all these things to happen, there's like no coincidence. This backs up my theory that V and her brother weren't coincidentally sent to the same place, but they're actually the same person. When V and Evie first met, he says that her name is familiar. As we learn later in the story that V was tortured and put in horrible situations, they said that part of the experiments in the detention caused the subjects to forget who they were and where they came from, which explains why he doesn't remember Evie when they meet. As you can see in this clip, Evie is talking about her past life and mentions her parents. V picks his head up and looks with curiosity, almost like he was having a flashback or had a memory in his head of them. I think that V has a connection to Evie and knows about her parents, but just can't think of how. This would be due to what I said earlier of how at St. Mary's the experiments cause the subjects to forget about their past.
I believe that V is actually Evie's dad. The United Kingdom government black bags people that go against the government by raiding their location and kidnapping them using a black bag. Evie claimed that her parents were civil rights activists who were considering leaving the country but were black bagged before they could, and Evie was left behind. V was shown to be taken to a government testing facility at Larkhill and was tortured and experimented on, but staying canonical to this theory, we can assume that never seeing his daughter grow up had a profound effect on him. When Evie is reading Ruth's biography, it is possible that she is actually reading the recollection of the time her mother and father met. In this biography, a quote reads, "The first time we kissed, I never wanted to kiss any lips but hers ever again." This is definitely something a married man would say to his wife, which makes it very possible that Ruth is actually Evie's mother, because it is unfair to assume that V would envision himself taking out his vengeance on the government over someone he never knew personally, which is what is assumed in the movie. Additionally, it can be assumed that Evie's mother and father would go to great lengths to continue to try and communicate to possibly formulate an escape plan, which is why there is a secret compartment in the remake of V's jail cell, possibly representing how V and the mother communicated in jail. However, extensive time periods of physical and psychological torture can lead to one's mind being altered and confused. It is also shown that V has a shrine for Ruth built in his home, which could just be his way of mourning his wife's death in his own head, who was tortured to the point of death in the facility. V's home is presumably an exact replica of the facility he was kept in, which raises the possibility that it left such an imprint in his mind that he presumes that it is his home, and he wants his daughter to know exactly what he went through, which would explain the torture sequence. All of this could lead to the logical explanation that V was actually Evie's dad the entire time.
Take off your mask.
No.
Defiant to the end, huh? You won't cry like him, will you? You're not afraid of death. You're like me.
The only thing that you and I have in common, Mr. Creedy, is we're both about to die.
How do you imagine that's gonna happen?
With my hands around your neck.
Bollocks. What you gonna do, huh? We've swept this place. You've got nothing. Nothing but your bloody knives and your fancy karate gimmicks. We have guns.
No, what you have are bullets, and the hope that when your guns are empty, I'm no longer standing, because if I am, you'll all be dead before you've reloaded.
That's impossible. Kill him.
Beneath this mask, there is more than flesh. Beneath this mask, there is an idea, Mr. Creedy. And ideas are bulletproof.